Hello everyone, this is Alonzo. Want to know how to get your first cloud job? Then please register for our webinar. We'll teach you everything that you need to know and answer your questions along the way. Hope to see you there. Hello everyone, this is Alonzo. Want to know how to get your first cloud job? Then please register for our webinar. We'll teach you everything that you need to know and answer your questions along the way. Hope to see you there.
My name is Richard Ferrer, and I can say I am cloud hired.
That yes, come and join and get cloud hired. I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
Hey, Go Cloud Architect family. I'm cloud hired.
So, I'm cloud hired, guys.
So I'll just say I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired thanks to Go Cloud Architects.
It worked for me, and now I'm cloud hired.
Because of Google Architect program, I am cloud hired. See!
I am cloud hired. Thank you, Mike and the Glow Cloud team.
Welcome everyone. We're back for another cloud computing career question and answer session. My name is Michael Gibbs and I'm here with my Chief Marketing Officer, Alonzo Coleman. And we're here today to help you build your best technology career. Maybe you desire to become a cloud architect. Maybe you're curious about being a cloud engineer. Maybe you're not sure of the difference between a cloud architect versus a cloud engineer. Maybe you're curious how certifications can help to assist you in your career, what they can do for you or what they can't. Maybe you're interested in learning how to earn more or get promoted in technology, and that's why we're here. We're here once a week to help you build the most elite technology career possible for you. So before we begin, I've been in technology now for, well, over 25 years now. I've worked on every cloud you can imagine, from the ISDN and frame relay clouds to the ATM clouds to the VPLS clouds to pretty much everything that we're actually talking about in these careers. I've been on the public clouds, and I just want to assist you get the best job you possibly can in your career. Can you all hear me well? Let me know if you can hear me well. We have put in new audio encoders and new video encoders and upgraded our cameras over the weekend. So if you need me to turn the volume up or something, let me know. We want to make sure you get an incredible experience here. So ask us your questions. Before we begin, I wanted to let you know about some free things we have going on to assist you in your career. We have the Cloud Architect Challenge on October 24th. Come join us on this completely free challenge, and we'll give you the live the life of a cloud architect for a couple of hours. We'll present a scenario to you. You'll have to design the scenario, and of course, like an architect, you're going to have to present it back to the customer and convince you they need it. And guess what? If you can pass this, you'll be able to pass, for the most part, any of the cloud architect interviews, because they're really simple interviews when you actually come down to it. They only feel hard to people because they've studied the wrong skills. They've studied engineering versus architecture, and it causes these kinds of challenges along the way. But we get to your goal anywhere at any time. So please join us in the completely free Cloud Architect Challenge. And if you want to know how to get your first cloud architect job, guess what? Download the completely free guide on how to become a cloud architect. It's free, and it will tell you every skill that you need to go from where you are to having a wonderful cloud architect career. My graduates are now working at AWS, at Apple, at Cisco, at IBM, at Google, Accenture, Deloitte, KPMG, Capgemini, PricewaterhouseCoopers, JP Morgan Chase, British Broadcasting Company, Barclays Bank, and every major company you can think of. The people we've trained have been there, and that's because we train them to be awesome architects, the best of the best. And that's why our alumni are everywhere. So ask us your questions so we can help you build a career. That's exactly how I do what I do, because I know the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. I've seen people that I've worked with that we've got them further in 3 months than they did in the previous 10 years because they were zigzagging, learning everybody else's job other than their own. So ask us your questions, we can help you. Let me turn it over to Alonzo for a minute. Let Alonzo from my team say hello to everybody and give us your questions in the meantime.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for the intro, Mike. We are always delighted to answer any questions that you have. We're just really excited to really enhance your trajectory into becoming cloud architects. So please, no question is too pedestrian or too simplistic. Whatever you feel that you need gap analysis and filling on, please do so and share your questions with us.
Absolutely. And that way we can help you get to your goals. So, Tyrone, do we have any questions either on LinkedIn or on YouTube to begin? If not, we'll talk a little bit while we wait for some questions. But for those of you that are out there, ask your questions now, because it happens every single time. People wait till the last 5 minutes when we're ready to leave, and then they bring in their questions, and then obviously we can't answer them. But we're here. We're completely free.
From Igor, I encountered last week something like Cisco Certified Design Expert, the CCDE for specifically. What do you think about that? Blueprint look like the blueprints look like architecture.
You know, Igor, I'm a big fan of the CCIE and the CCDE, but let's talk about what it's good at and what it's not at. First, the Cisco Certified Design Expert is a real technology architecture exam. It's not like any of the things that are called architect that really teach systems administration. The Cisco Certified Design Expert is how do you build a rock solid, high availability, high security technology environment for your organization. Now, it predominantly focuses on the network. I will tell you this, Igor. You can give me an AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional, an Azure Solutions Architect Expert, and a Google Professional Cloud Architect. You can combine that with the TOGAF, you can combine that with the CISSP, and none of it equals the CCDE. It's that good of a certification. Now, here's what I wonder, and I want you to think about it here. The CCDE is a big exam. To pass it, you're going to have to become great at the technology, read about 50 to 100,000 pages of reading to pass the exam. It'll cost you $10,000 to $50,000 to pass that exam from all the training that you're going to necessarily get to get there. And it'll make it that the world will know your name and be interested in calling you. So for those reasons, I absolutely love the CCDE. I did the CCIE back when it was a 2-day exam. I remember when I took the exam, this is going back, it was in 2000. And as soon as Jose, I think his last name is Martel, the proctor at Cisco, when we started out with 22 people and I was the only person left over, he's like, go make something money. And I did. Now what happened, Igor, is as over the years, the technology got better. We didn't quite need as people that were quite as strong as the CCIEs and CCDEs. And then a new breed of architect actually came. And the new breed of architect had better business acumen and better sales skills and better leadership skills and better executive presence and better communication skills and better levels of emotional intelligence. And when you put together two people, someone with elite business skills and sales skills and executive presence, you're dealing with upwards of, and good architecture, you're dealing with a $500,000 person a year. When you're dealing with a CCDE architect, you're dealing with about a $250,000 to $300,000 person. So, Igor, you got to look at it. Where do you want to be? Do you want to be that techie architect that's focused on making technology work where nobody else can figure it out? That's the CCDE. And if that's your goal, it is fantastic. And truthfully told, I love it. It's great. But what I would actually tell you, the opposite side of it is you'll earn more, you'll have more career potential, and you'll be viewed as higher status by the companies if you have more business acumen, more leadership, more sales, more executive presence, more emotional intelligence. So you got to determine what you want to do. Now, Igor, I started out my career, I was the CCIE, went and got a bunch of other critical certifications, became the techie of the techie. And then Igor, back in 2001, I had a manager that really did something nice for me. My manager said this. My manager said, Mike, I know you're working on the CISSP exam. It's a great security exam. They even brought in the trainers to train us because they determined everybody had it. And my manager says, do you want to know the difference between a $150,000 sales engineer and a $300,000 enterprise architect? And this is 20 years ago. I was like, tell me, please. And he said, it's the impact you can make to your customers. And he said, well, technical skills will get you this far. It's the business acumen, the leadership, the sales, the executive presence, emotional intelligence, negotiation skills, and ability to exercise influence that's going to get you to go from here to there. And my manager said, sure. You can do this. And if it's your goal to just move to stay a principal architect and move into a distinguished architect role, it's like, keep staying on the tech. But he said, if you really want to move up and if you really want to help your customers, get off the tech, focus on what the tech can do for their business as opposed to the technology itself. He said, the tech is just a tool for transformation. Well, I'm really grateful that I had that manager. I'm really great that that manager said, stop focusing on the tech. I focused on the business. And, I had a 6-figure raise within a year. And then in the next year, I practically had another 6-figure raise. So I always err on the side of the business if you like business. But if you love technology and you want to be the techie, Igor, then focus on the CCDE. You're never going to go wrong with a CCDE or a CCIE.
I couldn't have said it better, Mike. I'm sorry to interrupt. Please go ahead.
So you'll never do better with that. The question before we go to Alonzo is the juice worth the squeeze? Mm-hmm. What's going to give you the maximum return on investment for your time and your spending? That's the question you have to answer, and it's going to be based on your goal. Alonzo, let's go to you.
Definitely, Mike. We talk a lot about the technology, but also, especially when it comes to AI and understanding that no matter how technologically savvy we become, it's that human component that is very important. So based off of the information that I shared in the last week's branding class, being able to know the technology is not enough. if you're able to communicate it within a business transformative solutions for the organization and the leadership that they can understand, that is where a lot of your money is going to come from, because we know the tech. People know how to do the tech, but what do you do with it? And how you're able to extrapolate that is going to be key to success. So we don't have any questions out here. What's going on today?
We have some questions. So Chris Otara.
Okay, from Khadijah. Hello, everyone. This is Khadijah from Maryland. Hello. I finished my orientation, but I forgot which day we are having class and what time. If you can, remind me, please. Thank you.
So absolutely. So please, first remember this. We sent you all a welcome email the second you joined, and we beg everybody to read it, because in that, it actually has all the information. I'd also like you to rewatch the orientation, because in the orientation, it tells you when those classes are. And if you miss those dates, chances are you missed something else, and I want to make sure you are rock solid. Our classes are Tuesday, 10 a.m. Eastern for 2 hours, Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern time, and then Friday from 1 o'clock, and they're all 2 hours. But please go back, and I really, really, really want you to go back and do that orientation again, because if you're missing it, there's other things that you're missing, and I don't want you to miss anything. I want you to get the maximum results. I'm thrilled you're with us, but buying the course isn't enough. I want you to go through it and really learn and take good notes. And that information is also in the top first section of your course. Chris or Tyrone, we go to the next one.
Okay, from Frank Simmons. I am currently a network administrator, but want to transition into the cloud. I'm currently finishing my bachelor's in information technology. I currently hold a CompTIA trifecta, and I'm currently studying for the AWS CCP. What skills, soft or hard, would you suggest I get under my belt?
Well, Frank, right now you only have a little bit of certifications, kind of the intro level, but you didn't tell me which career you actually want. So I need to know which career you would want. Now, if you would ask me, I would tell you to skip all the CompTIA certifications whatsoever. They're not bad certifications at all. They're very good certifications, but they're not really high on employers or desirable to be listed. And realistically, in them, they're not going to teach you how to do anything with the cloud. They don't teach you enough about security. They don't teach you enough about networking. They don't really teach you enough to really build it. So, Frank, what would you like to do? If you'd like to be a cloud architect, it's one set of skills. If you'd like to be a cloud engineer, it's a different set of skills. If you want to be a DevOps engineer, it's a different set of skills. So the question is, what would you like to do? That's the real secret. Tell us what you'd like to do. And while we're waiting for you, I'll give you the cloud architect job and I'll give you the cloud engineer job. But there's probably 100 different or more different kinds of tech jobs you can have in the cloud. And you have to have the right skills for each job. For example, someone that plays this American sport, baseball, needs a different level of skills than someone that plays international football, otherwise known as soccer, versus American football, because they're all different sports. They all have different strength, speed, and power requirements. They have different movement requirements, and they need a different level of athlete. Well, same thing with all these jobs in the cloud. Let's assume you want to be a cloud architect. The first thing you're going to have to learn is system design. And you said solutions architect. And Frank, the solutions architect can be your first job. It doesn't need to be a long-term one. And if you learn cloud engineering, Frank, you will not learn how to be an architect. And I want to make it clear to you. So let's say you learned how to do construction. Let's say we're talking about designing a hotel. And I put a hammer, a nail, and a screwdriver in your hands, and I taught you how to use them. That's engineering. Do you think you'd know how to design a hotel or a shopping mall? The answer is you can't. I'll give you some examples. Ivan Tamba's first job is working for AWS as a solution architect. Coyote's first job is working for AWS as a solution architect. Jordan Kitko's first job was at AWS as a solution architect. Balwinder, was a stay-at-home mom who we got hired as a cloud solution architect at Microsoft. We could talk about people like Jennifer Ema or Daniel Boso or Wallace Sagana that we got hired with no tech experience whatsoever at JP Morgan Chase Bank. Or we can talk about Jeffrey West, who was a geologist whose first job was a solution architect at Kalium. or Noah Parker, who recently got a solution architect job that was a social worker. And, Frank, I have people with 20 years engineering experience and 10 years cloud engineering experience, and they need just as much training to be a solution architect as they would as if you were used to being a nurse. And the reason is it's a completely different career. So these are the skills for the solution architect or the cloud architect. System design, and that means network and data center design, not building. So like a network administrator that goes to a Cisco router and types config T in GE0/0 IP ADDR 192.168.1.1 map, and then 255.255.255.252 no shut. That's network administration. Network architecture is how do I design my core access and distribution layers? How do I design my routing? Where do I route summarize, for example? Where are my route redistribution points? What do my BGP pairing situations look like? IBGP, for example, do I have route reflectors, confederations, or a combination? That's architecture, which is the exact opposite of hands-on administration. So for the architect, the first thing you need is network, data center, and cloud design knowledge. And you'll never get that by building it. So if you want to be a solution architect, that should be your next job. If you want to be a cloud engineer, learn that. But you're learning opposite jobs. So pick the one that you actually want. So let's say it's a solutions architect. You need to know network, data center, and design. And that means everything from servers and server virtualizations to containers and container orchestration, storage area network, security, networking, all of it from a design, not a building plan. Now, once you know architecture, the next thing you have to understand, Frank, is that we don't touch the technology as architects. I'm going to say it again. We don't touch the technology architects. And Frank, if you worked as an architect for a Cisco, for an IBM, for a Microsoft, for a Google, for an Oracle, for an AWS, for a Deloitte, Accenture, KPMG, if you touch your customer systems like an engineer would do, you're going to be fired because we don't touch the technology. We're not allowed to. There's another team of people that have a different set of skills for this. So what do we have to do as architects so you understand the skills? We have to obtain the business requirements. Why? It's not the technology that drives the architecture, it's the business needs. So in order to get the business requirements, we need to start with the CEO, then the chief information officer, chief technology officer, chief financial officer. We got to get their business requirements from them. We need to figure out what is the architecture vision for the company. How do they want that company to be? And we've got to get that. That's our starting point, Frank. Which means in order to even start the architecture, we need extraordinarily good communication skills. We need something called CXO relevancy. What does a CXO level care about? So we need that. We need to know how to ask the right questions. The next thing we need to find out is how the business architecture is now. How does the business make money? Does it have extranet partners? If so, does it have a supply chain? How does it work? How does the customer journey work? That's the business architecture. So we need to map out the baseline business architecture, and then we need to plan a future business architecture, or how we want the business to run in the future based upon the vision the customer told us. And then we've got to go future business way to run, current business way to run, what's the gap in between them? So we do a gap analysis. And then we baseline their data architecture. We baseline their technology, their architectures, their network, all of it, their storage. Baseline now. And then we design a new architecture based upon the new business architecture, which is based upon the corporate vision. That means we're doing a lot of stakeholder management. We're leading large teams. We're selling. We're there. Now, the next thing we need to do is obviously create a statement of work. What's going to be done? How many people do we need? What's the skill level of those people? And build a governance team of the people. Now, Frank, we've got to sell it back to the customer and negotiate the deal. So what are we talking about skill-wise? We're talking about business acumen. We're talking about leadership. We're talking about sales. We're talking about executive presence. We're talking about emotional intelligence, stakeholder management, and then system design skills. That is what you need to know to be an architect. Now, because you mentioned cloud engineer, I'm going to tell you exactly why that's going to prepare you for somebody else's job. Engineering thinking and architect thinking are the exact opposite. If you think like an engineer, you're going to focus on technology, which will destroy your architecture career. If you think like an architect, you're going to focus on the business. So the stepwise approach of admin, engineer, architect will not only cost you millions of dollars in your career, you're going to be training for the wrong job and damaging your architect thinking, which is going to make you a better engineer and a less architect, which is fine if you want to become a great architect, a great engineer, but a disaster if you want to become a great architect. Because you got to train for the job you want versus the job that you have. Now, if you wanted to be an engineer, then I would tell you to learn Linux. Then I would tell you to learn Python. Then I would tell you to learn Terraform. Then I would tell you you need to run Bash shell scripting. Then I would need to tell you need to write some Windows PowerShell scripting. Then I would tell you got to get hands-on on all the cloud and learn how to build versus design. So Frank, I hope you understand why the shortest distance between points is a straight line. And by learning engineering, you're going to need to be completely retrained to begin to become an architect. And I had great cloud engineers. Jawad was an example. He was a cloud engineer for 8 years. I retrained him to be an architect. He's now over at AWS. Or was it Pawan, who we recently got a cloud architect job, who worked as a cloud engineer for nearly 10 years for us. Now, they all both took a year to get hired. At the same time, we've got people like Lenny Burnett, who's a video editor, who we got hired in 8 months as a solution architect without any of the engineering background because he learned architecture. So what I'm saying is train for the job you want. But you're going to need hard skills and soft skills to get any job if all you've done is certifications.
Back to Igor. Thank you. So do you recommend some books about business? I want to gain a business vocabulary.
So Igor, I don't want you to gain a business vocabulary. I want you to gain business knowledge. Now, I could tell you, Igor, fresh out of my MBA, it was my second MBA because I love school, higher education, and I love business school. When I was at Cisco, I was asked to lead a chief information officers, chief executive officers, and chief technology officers. I ran a business council, and they would tell us what they wanted in our products and solutions. It's the most fun thing I ever had. And here's what I used. Today, we're going to talk about the operational expenditure and capital expenditures here. We're going to address your weighted average cost of capital, an amortization schedule for purchase versus lease. We're going to look at the impact of taxes, and we're going to go figure out your technology based on this. And every word was like one of that. Here's what the audience looked like. And I went over to my executive coach, Francis, who's one of my best friends in the world, and I said, Francis, I'm not feeling great about this presentation. What do you think? Now, Francis is one of the best business leaders I've ever met in my entire life. I've known her for 20 years, and I'm blessed to have her as a coach. She takes a deep breath, and she says, Michael, can I send you a book or two? And I said, sure, Francis. And the book arrives, Why Business People Speak Like Idiots. And she told me, and in the book, they talked about not using buzzwords, not using jargon to communicate in clear, plain English and perfect terms. Guess what? She taught me that. I did poof. What do you call it? Promotion. Another promotion, and the customer was there. So I want you to get business knowledge. Well, how do you get that? No, you're getting a lot from us, Igor, but I'd read textbooks on macroeconomics. I'd read textbooks on microeconomics. I would read books on law for e-commerce. I would read books on managerial accounting, in finance, in sales. MBA level textbooks are better. And then I would go and learn more. I've read thousands of books. I can't say that you're going to learn everything in one book. My presence-wise, I typically read 3 books a week, but that would be where I would go. Yeah, and in our elite program we have it, or get an MBA at some point. But that's what I would suggest. But Alonzo's a good business acumen guy. What do you think, Alonzo?
Totally agree. I think what you said aligns with what my thinking is. Igor, you're already a part of the community, so there's a lot of resources that you already have access to. Don't focus on any type of jargon. Like I said, one of the things that I learned and I'm still learning is to not speak like an idiot. I'm not derogatory towards me, but a lot of the eloquence that you may have learned in a graduate degree or a bachelor's where you need to have this type of vocabulary, it's inverse in the business world. Why? Because a lot of the people, they're focused on how they can get a simplistic answer to a possibly complex problem. There needs to be no ambiguity. I could never say that word. You can't be ambiguous with that type of terminology. So you have to be very plain about what you want to communicate, get it across without any acronyms and to the point, so everyone is on board and is on the same page with what your line of thinking is.
Sounds great. Tyrone or Chris, you can bring in the next one.
Ambiguity. From Madhan. I'm planning to shift from application support job to cloud roles. I have an AWS SysOps cert, but I don't have much projects to showcase. I feel a bit hesitant to appear for interviews. Please suggest any ideas.
Well, Madhan, the first time somebody tried to show me a project on an interview, I escorted them out of the room and said, you're not an artist, you're a technology professional. You will not be showing anybody projects. And if you try, the interview is going to be over. I don't know why, but there's a bunch of people that have never been hired that are now telling people get to cloud projects, cloud projects, cloud projects. Nobody cares. They care, can you do the job? And you know how you're going to assess someone's knowledge in the interview? They're going to ask you complicated questions, and they want to see how in deep you know it. Now, you didn't tell me cloud roles. Now, I tell everybody not to have the SysOps cert. It's the worst one you could possibly do. It offers the lowest salary of the bunch, and it makes people think of you as systems administrator. Now, if you'd like to be a systems administrator, that would be perfect. Perfect. So the key is, what do you want to do? I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to need the skills. And you said application support to cloud roles, but that's meaningless. If you want to be a cloud developer, you're going to need one set of skills. Or you're going to be a cloud database administrator, you're going to need another set. If you want to be a cloud maintenance person or SysOps, you need one set of skills. Cloud engineer, a different set of skills. Cloud architect, a different set of skills. Cloud AI architect, a different set of skills. Where do you want to be? You tell us the destination and we're there. Otherwise, you basically said, I want to go to the airport. Which plane do I get on? And I say, well, what do you really want to do? But there's going to be a lot of things that are going to need to transpire from support to something else. But it's going to be a rebranding and a retooling for architecture roles. It's going to be a depth of knowledge for engineering roles. So we need to know where you want to be, where you're going.
Yeah, we'd like to know more about that, madam.
If you tell us what you want to do, I can get you there and get you there easy, but without a destination, it's sort of like throwing stuff in the air and hoping it lands where you want it to go. So tell us what you want and we'll get you there.
From Hamza, is it possible to become a DevOps engineer, I assume, with zero experience, Mike?
Of course it's possible. You know, nobody's born a physician. Nobody's born an airplane pilot. No one's born an attorney. No one's born a DevOps engineer. And no one's born an architect. And for most people, it's their first job. So, of course. Now, and okay, you told us your role. Excellent. Now, the good news, the question is, what are your skills? I'm going to tell you this right now. If all you do is like an AWS DevOps professional, that has no bearing on anybody's ability to get a job. They will be in the unemployment line looking for a job for the next 10 years. But if you have the right DevOps skills, there's a world of people that are fighting to hire you. It's impossible to find a good person in any technology role. So the answer is, of course it's possible. Of course it's possible. It's nothing for you to do. Get the right training. You're not going to find it on Udemy. You're not going to find it on Coursera. But if you get the right DevOps education, and that begins with learning how to be a great developer before you learn great DevOps tools, you'll have no problem getting a job, and you'll have a great job. And you don't need experience, you need competency. So here's what employers care about. Can you actually do the job? I've interviewed thousands of employers, and that's number one. Can you do the job? They don't care if you've got a PhD. They don't care if you've got 50 certifications. They care, can you do the job? The next thing they care about is, can they trust you? Which means don't lie on your interview and prove to them they can't. I say this because I've interviewed over 6,000 people, and guess what? 5,900 and some have lied to me, so I escort them out the door. Actually, I feed them cookies for the rest of the 15 minutes because I don't want to listen to them speak, because when somebody lies to me, I don't trust them. And once I lose trust, I can't hire somebody. And I don't want to listen to them because they lied to me and they hurt me. by disrespecting me. So I can't feed them cookies until the interview's over. So don't lie. So they care about, can you do the job? Can they trust me? Now, the next thing they care is, do you communicate well? And here's why. You don't communicate well, not only are you going to have problems in relationships, but you're going to make errors, because communication skills and weaknesses are the biggest cause. So make sure you communicate well. Now, next, what do they care? They care about your energy, enthusiasm, and passion for the work. But, let's pretend you're the hiring manager. You got two people. Hello, hold on, I got to go take some selfies. Do you hire this person? Of course you don't. You hire the person that's excited and ready to be there. Now, the next thing the companies look for, they used to use the term energizer. It's a Jack Welch from GE term, but it really means someone who raises the energy in the room. Lonzo comes in, I feel good. I feel good just knowing Lonzo's here next to me. He raises the energy of the other room. I feel better knowing he's here. So that's what employers are looking for. Now, the next things that they're looking for are, do you know what you know and know what you don't know? Because if not, you make errors. And then after that, the next thing we want to talk about is, are you willing to go above bound, and are you willing to be a team player? That's it, and you can do it. Tyrone, I want to go out of order to this LinkedIn user that's asking about non-architect jobs with architect job descriptions, and then we'll go back to the rest of them.
From the LinkedIn user, most cloud architect jobs I see have DevOps and programming requirements in the description. Do you think it's necessary to know a bit of those as well as to increase your employability?
Well, first, if it's really an architect job, there is no DevOps, there is no programming, there is no configuration, there is no implementation. If you work at Amazon, Cisco, IBM, Google, Accenture, Deloitte, KPMG, Capgemini, or even a big bank, you will not be allowed to touch the technology. Now, what you will see is 1,000,001 stupid job descriptions, and I use the term stupid job descriptions, and here's what they are. I've made them myself. I go to Indeed or ZipRecruiter. I know I need to hire a cloud architect. I type in cloud architect, nothing shows up. I type in solution architect, and I end up picking up the solution architect job description for an application architect. And then I say, there's no cloud in there. I'm going to put some networking data center and some cloud stuff in there. I save it, and now it's a new architect job. We do not touch the technology as architects. You will not be allowed to. So by learning the skills for somebody else's job, guess what you don't do? Making yourself more marketable. So the key is there's a lot of bad job descriptions. My team, please post in the chat box what Chief Information Officer actually put in the job description. And here's what happened. We all saw these ridiculous job descriptions. My buddies and I used to drink scotch and call it a comedy routine. When we'd look through them once a year, we'd all get our Macallan 25 out, and we'd put 2 shots in a glass, and we would joke around. And what happened was, Gartner, an organization that evaluates technology trends, and us all looked at it and said, what are these architect job descriptions? Architects don't touch the technology. Architects don't code. Architects don't configure. Architects don't do any of this stuff. So what is this stuff we see in job descriptions? And then they went and asked the chief information officers, the people that hire you, and said, what do you want in a cloud architect? And they told you. And here's what they said. We would like someone that leads the cultural change for cloud adoption, someone that can develop and coordinate a cloud architecture, and someone that could develop a cloud strategy and coordinate the adoption process. Someone that can find talent with the necessary skills, assess applications, software, and hardware, create a cloud broker team, establish best practices for cloud across the company, select cloud providers and vet third-party services, oversee governance and mitigate risk, work closely with the IT security people to monitor privacy and develop incident response procedures, manage budgets and estimate costs, and operate at scale. So here's what it's going to be like when you work as an architect, and I've been one for 25 years. You're going to meet with the client. You're going to talk to their executives. Poof. Now you're going to go back. You're going to talk to other key stakeholders. You're going to ask them about the vision of their company for the future. Then you're going to baseline their business. How does it work? And you're going to map out the business processes, who does what, how does money occur, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Next, you're going to map out how you want the business to work in the future. Then you're going to look at the current technology the way it is. Then you're going to look at the technology in the future. Then you're going to go build a team when you go back to your company and design a new technology structure. You're going to lead that team. You're going to write document after document. You're going to draw picture after picture. Then you're going to go back to the client and you're going to sell it to the client. You're going to help negotiate the sale. And the client says yes, and they sign on the dotted line. And you know what you do as the cloud architect? Here's what happens. It gets turned over to another team, and you're asked to go to the next customer and sell the next architecture. That's it. So don't learn DevOps. Now, I'm also going to tell you that I had a student named Arun. Arun went and got a DevOps and SysOps certification, and he has his resume littered with all the skills from somebody else's job. And he kept saying, Mike, I go on interviews and they keep asking me about DevOps. What's going on? And he never got hired. He went on like 15 interviews. And I said, Arun, can I play with your resume in class? And Alonzo was in that class. He remembers it. And Arun said to me, Mike, I don't care what you do. I just want an architect job. I'm tired of this. I got rid of all the DevOps. I got rid of his DevOps and SysOps certifications. I got rid of any references to code. I talked about design, presentation, stakeholder management, leadership, all the things that Arun was good at. And he had 3 job offers within the month because he got 1 million interviews and I loved them. And they interviewed him and know what's on your resume. So here's the thing. Train for your job, not somebody else's. If you wanted to hire a chef and they said they're an expert at cutting the grass, would you care? I wouldn't. In fact, if I went to hire a chef and they told me they were a lawn care expert, I wouldn't hire them because I figured they dedicated 50% of their learning to lawn care instead of 100% to being a great chef. And I want someone that's great at their job. So don't do that. Learn the skills to be an architect and you'll have no problem. But make sure you build those presentation skills, sales skills, leadership skills, emotional intelligence, and everywhere else. Because if you don't do that, poof, you got nothing.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. One of the things that we need to definitely stress as well is that you are not going to exponentially underscore your salary by coupling engineering skills with architecture skills and somehow creating this amalgamation of super ninja stuff. It's not going to happen. What you're actually doing is that you're canceling out both skill sets. So please make sure that you focus. If you want to be a cloud engineer, great. If you want to be a cloud architect, great. But focus on the skills that matter and not try to somehow group them together for a large leap in salary or promotions.
You know, we went out our super time. Oh, so Madhan said he wants to be a cloud engineer role. Okay, Madhan. So first, forget about all the certifications you did, because they're not going to give you any of the skills that you need. What I want you to do is do the following. I want you to learn the network and the data center. And that means routing and switching technologies, because you're going to need strong networking skills to be a cloud engineer. And what they teach in the Network Plus isn't even going to cover it. What they teach in the CCNA isn't enough. The CCNP level is the kind of networking we're talking about, which is a total leaps and bounds above what's there. So I don't care if you get a certification, I care that you get there. Next, I need you to become, if you want to be a cloud engineer, very strong at Linux administration. Every computer that matters is on Linux. And if you're a cloud engineer, it's like a modern systems administrator mixed with a network engineer. So you're going to be doing a lot of Linux stuff. Red Hat, Ubuntu, you're going to be installing things, you're going to be modifying things, you're going to be getting all kinds of files, you're going to be hardening Linux systems and a lot. So you're going to really need strong Linux administration skills. Now for the cloud engineer, you're not going to be clicking the buttons like they would teach you an AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional. That's not going to be there. You're going to be using Terraform. So you've got to get really good at the command line and infrastructure as code in the form of Terraform. Now, you're going to be doing a lot of automating as a cloud engineer, and that means you're going to need strong knowledge in Bash shell scripting and Windows PowerShell scripting because you're going to be dealing with all that kind of stuff. Now, you're also going to need to know Python as a cloud engineer. You know, you master those skills plus good hands-on experience in the cloud, you're going to get there. Those are the skills that are necessary to be good, to be strong, to be capable. That's what I would do. So you're going to need both. All those are going to be hard skills. Now, the reality is this. If I told you that on average, people with higher levels of emotional intelligence earn $29.6 thousand more per year than those who don't, that's going to be a big factor in getting hired. Your interview skills can enable you to get a better job by being great. On top of that, we're talking about your ability to really communicate with others. You master those three, you're going to get any job you want, anytime. So I'm glad you provided where we wanted to go. I just wanted to give you the right destination. Chris or Tyrone in the back end, we can go to the next one.
From Hera, when's the next time you'll do discounts for the program?
I don't know. I don't know if we'll do discounts in the future or we won't. Our job is changing lives, and we do it at the lowest cost we possibly can. Here's what I can tell you. The average cloud architect earns $828 a day. Average. If someone were to wait 2 months to get a discount and maybe save $800, they lost $32,000 of earning potential. So, that scares me. So the key is when you want to be an architect or you want to build a career, you've got to build the best you possibly can. Knowledge, capabilities, and time matters. Because if you want to be an architect and the average salary is $234,000 per year, and you wait 2 months to save 1 day's pay, you lost 2 months' earnings. So I went to school. I have a $300,000 plus education. I took loans. I paid them back practically overnight with my bigger salary. So my recommendation is you find the best training you can and you get it. Limited means. In that, the only thing I could eat was top ramen noodles and cans of tuna straight out of the can while I was paying my way through school, working 2 full-time jobs to pay for school. I can tell you this, once I got my first great job, paying back student loans was like nothing. And so I'd focus on getting the job and getting ready. We may have one in 2 months. We may not have one in 2 months. But I know we can change your life and probably add 6 figures or more to your income. We've taken, most of our clients get a $100,000 raise after our training for the most part. And that I know for someone, that is one thing that we can definitely do to really change your life is get you a much better job, get you paid more, and do it quickly.
And another thing, Harold, what is your career? What is your future? What is it worth to you? So I just do not want you to wait and see what happens when it's based off, when your future's at stake, when what you can do in your future is at stake over a percentage. We're just being honest with you there. Okay. Sir, is it possible to land a cloud job, specifically a solutions architect position, for a fresher without any prior experience?
Of course it is with the right education. So recently we had Al Legister. He was a student of ours, no tech experience. He got his first job as a senior solutions architect with Deloitte. Now we had Pierre Desault was another person who lived in Canada. He was working on sailboats. First job, solution architect. Now we had Lenny Burnett, who was a video editor, a really great guy. He'd edited some videos for us in one of our programs. Got him his first job as a solution architect at Arrow Electronics, which is part of Citrix. Now, of course, we had Wallace Agana, hired as an enterprise architect, better than a solution architect at JP Morgan Chase. We had Vladimir recently, who was a 24-year-old college student who we got hired, again, with no tech background whatsoever. A couple of weeks ago, we had the perfume sales rep. He was a really nice guy. Raymond was his name. He got his first solution architect job after our training. Now, Val Winder got hired at Microsoft, first tech job. She was a stay-at-home mom, was a solution architect. Jordan Kitko, Yvonne Tamba, Coyote, all got hired by AWS as a solution architect after our training. And then we have people that, have background, like we had a really strong network engineer in Joe Millen. We retrained him and got him hired as a senior solution architect. So we take all kinds, but the key is, of course you can, but you have to have the skills. There is nothing that they're going to teach you in a certification that will give you those skills. But if you have the skills, you can get any job you want. It's ridiculous to think you have to start at the bottom and work yourself up. That's why you get an education. Imagine a doctor thinking that they can just get a job by on-the-job training. Here, I learned a little of this today. I learned a little of this today. Yeah, it's been 20 years. Now I'm a doctor. No, that's ridiculous. They go to medical school and they graduate as a doctor. How about an airplane pilot who's going to learn on the job? Here you go. I got 500 people on the airplane and I'm just going to go figure it out. Oops, plane's going down, plane's going up. Of course not. They go to flight school and they learn, and the first job is a pilot. Law school. Someone's first job is this. So I think the problem is where people don't understand is they think they can just learn on the job without getting the education. I've got people with 10 years cloud engineering experience that take just as much time to train to become a cloud architect as someone that used to be a nurse. It's a different job. And you don't learn how to be an architect by being an engineer. You don't learn how to be a doctor by working as a nurse. You learn it by going to school for it. So the answer is, of course you can. And I give you plenty of young people that we've gotten the jobs for, plenty of older people that we've gotten the jobs for, but as long as they get the right training. Alonzo, what's it like watching you see people that get solution architect jobs and cloud architect jobs with no experience?
I'm smiling all the time. I am ecstatic about that. I mean, when we get whether it's a phone call, text, it's on Slack, or any other type of correspondence, it's really gratifying for us because as someone who's receiving the initial phone calls of interest all the way to us seeing that they got cloud hired, you know, it's an amazing story to see where they've been, where they've gone, and where they're going to go. So that's a perk that you can't quantify that we really enjoy about seeing everyone getting cloud hired.
Oh, wait, didn't you get a cloud architect job with no experience other than our training program before I begged you to come back to us?
Sure did. Yeah. I am also a product of this program. Okay. My initial bread and butter way long was in the marketing industry. Then I migrated over to program management, and ultimately I loved what was going on in the cloud. I really saw that this was a replacement passion for me. I did the work, came out the other end rewarded with, or rather I earned a cloud architect position, and it's everything that everyone can say about this program and what you see. And then I came back here because I really love working with people. One of the things that are most gratifying is building relationships, watching people thrive, helping solve problems, and being able to do that within a community of also self-motivating people to make it happen. So it was easy for me.
There you go. One of our students that did it, no problem. We've got students doing it all the time.
From Hera, how would you deal with attention deficit problems to stay focused on what's important?
Well, personally, I meditate. By nature, and my team can tell you, I'm here, all in it to drive people nuts. But I meditate and practice yoga every day. And with that, I'm able to stay very, very focused. But, you know, we all have our challenges, and attention problems are something that many of us struggle with. In fact, Hera, what if I told you that I've never met a chief executive officer that didn't have an attention deficit problem? And I've never met one. And then I became a chief executive officer, and you know what happened? My phone does this. Beep, 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 beep. And when I started getting 2,000 to 5,000 messages a day between email and Slack and LinkedIn and Facebook and whatever other messaging platforms that we have that I don't even remember that I get messages on, you know, by the end of the day, I developed it too. So here's what I do. I practice yoga. I meditate. And I also eat carefully. Just the wrong foods will give you energy ups and downs. I follow the paleo diet. It's been very good for me in my condition. But yes, that's how every executive does it. They all get ADD and they focus. But nutrition has a big element there. And meditation and exercise play a big role here as well.
And one thing also, Hera, is, you know, you see it, whether you can use a turkey or an elephant. If you're hungry, where do you start? You know, you can't eat the whole thing at once. Break it down in incremental pieces. If you're ever challenged with a project or otherwise a challenge where you really need to provide a solution, look at it from a 10,000-foot view and start breaking it down into digestible pieces that you can solve. The more you solve, the more confident you'll be. Get those low-hanging fruits there, the easy ones that you can jump at, knock them down, and as you move forward, the next thing you'll know, your problems are solved. The things that you wanted to learn are have been learned, and you'll be able to apply them moving forward. From Christian, what would be a great PKI architecture? We don't do acronyms, but we understand where you're coming from.
I don't, because he's either talking about a public key infrastructure, or more likely he's talking about key performance indicators, and he got the K and the P there. So Christian, I can tell you one thing: if you're an architect and you're using acronyms, please don't. Acronyms cause error. Does VM mean virtual machine, voicemail, vulnerability management? So I don't actually know what you're asking. But I would I'm going to assume you're talking about key performance indicators, because that would be more architecture. That as opposed to one low-level thing for one solution, because architecture is everything. It's going to depend on the business. You know, is the business looking to increase sales? Good key performance indicators, if so, would be revenue increases. Is the business looking for operational efficiency? Then key performance indicators would be employee productivity. So the key performance indicators are going to be different in every architecture based upon the business problems you're supposed to be solving. So I would say really learn the business, because every business is different. Every architecture is different. And one architecture that would work for a bank will not work for a hospital. And two banks that have a different business model will need completely different architecture. That's why any of these well-architected frameworks, they mean well, but they don't drive transformation. They're basically, here's tech, and here you use it together. But the problem is we've got to go solve a business problem, not a technical problem. Kind of keep that in the back of mind. Ian Rowe, I am so happy to see you. Ian is a wonderful, wonderful friend of mine. He came and took our program in the UK. He got a fantastic solution architect job. Ian, it's great to see you. And I know, Ian, I think you actually like the yoga and meditation that we actually brought into our training program. So, Ian, it's good to see you. Ian, congratulations on some of those wonderful things that have recently happened to you. I'm so happy. And Ian, either we meet in Jamaica one day, or you come to Florida, or I meet you in England. But it's going to happen. It's going to happen soon.
Either way, are all great places to be. Love them.
My preference is Jamaica, but I'm happy to go anywhere.
Yeah, one of my favorite places to ever be.
Mine too.
Back to Igor. What is your opinion on the CompTIA Project Plus? I know that you don't, that you do not do CompTIA, but what are the alternatives to gain the basic knowledge of TOGAF?
Well, CompTIA Project Plus has nothing to do with TOGAF. So, Igor, what I would say is skip the CompTIA Project Plus. And while I have no problems with anything, universities do CompTIA. So if you're part of a university and they enforce it on you, go ahead. But I don't recommend CompTIA anything. Business knowledge is go to an MBA program. Go to business school. Start reading business books and stay out of IT certification books if you want to gain some business knowledge. They won't have any. TOGAF is another animal in itself. I love TOGAF. We're members of the open group along with every major technology company. And TOGAF is great for an architect that already knows how to be an architect, because here's what TOGAF is. It's a framework to do things the same way. So it's a framework that says start with the architecture vision, then go to the business architecture, then go to the data architecture, then go to the technology architecture, et cetera, et cetera. And by doing so, we find ourselves in a great position, and we don't make the mistakes of the techie that's solving a tech problem without understanding the business problem. So it's just a methodology. It's not going to teach you business acumen in the TOGAF. It's not going to teach you architecture in the TOGAF. But if you're an architect, and then you add the TOGAF, that's where the magic happens. And whether it's TOGAF, whether it's the Zachman framework, whether it's the fee from the federal government or the Department of Defense framework. These are frameworks which just say, a perspective of how to do it. And frameworks themselves are going to be very non-specific, but they're going to keep you make sure. I like to say, Igor, and I know you're really smart, frameworks are to make sure everybody does it at the same time. So my wife and I both practice medicine. My wife focused on internal medicine and cardiology, and I did a lot of orthopedics and regenerative orthopedics. Orthopedic problems start from the foot. Medical problems start from the head and they work their way down. So if you see my wife take care of a patient, she starts with the head, the eyes, the ears, the nose, the throat, the heart, the lungs, the belly, and then she goes their way to extremities. Because I do more orthopedics and musculoskeletal medicine, at least when I used to, I'd start with the feet and then go to the ankles, the knees, and the hips. And the TOGAF says, hey, everybody start at the head. And then everybody go to the neck. And that way, everybody gets to the same. And TOGAF also specifies architecture terminology so that we're not getting into the fluff land, like a compute engine instance versus an EC2 instance versus a virtual machine when it's all the same. It uses a standard common language. So I love TOGAF. But read a macroeconomics textbook, you're going to learn macroeconomics, the kind they would use in an MBA program. You learn macroeconomics. Read a microeconomics textbook. Read a finance textbook. Read a project management textbook. Read an operations management textbook. Read finance textbooks. Read a lot of them. You learn a lot. That's what I did. Of course, I did go multiple MBAs, and I read 3,000 to 5,000 books on business and leadership and sales and behavioral psychology because it's what I like. But keep it back. You'll do great.
From Ben Kim. I am currently in the program and I recommend. Thanks so much, Ben. We appreciate you and glad to have you here with us.
So thrilled that you're here.
From Toy, will there ever be in-person training?
Well, actually, next week we've got a live in-person training session in Orlando. But Toy, here's the reason we don't do in-person training as a rule. That doesn't mean we won't in the future. But this weekend we have it, and we have it coming this weekend. And we also have a conference periodically. But here's the problem. Right now, the way we offer training, both live and hybrid, if you became my student today, I'd let you stay in the program until the day you were hired. And because we are so good at technology, we run an OpenStack private cloud. AWS wanted $11,000 a month to host our cloud. We bought the servers and hosted it ourselves for $10,000 one time. Why? Because we designed and built half of the networks for the entire world in my life. So we have our own clouds. We have super ultra high definition video systems and encoders and workstations that we built ourselves. And by doing so, we were able to get $30,000 systems for $10,000 each. And we do it online. We can offer it at a cost that's basically 3 days pay for our average graduate. Now I'll tell you, my students that want really good and even more small batch training, well, we put them in our elite architect program. And in addition to the 3 live sessions per week, we do executive business training on the weekends and more interview training at night. And the students in that program really get the small experience along with the big experience. And guess what? They still manage to stay in our program until they're hired. But I tell you, we don't want to be like everybody else. The people, they do a boot camp, and we're not a boot camp, or they run an in-person training. And here's what happens. You get done the training session, and when you're done, you're looking for a job, and nobody wants you. Because it has to be there, and it has to be there. I paid $40,000 for in-person training in the beginning. I took an $11,000 loan, a $5,000 loan. I borrowed some money from my brother. I borrowed money from my father-in-law. I borrowed money from a firefighter buddy, and then I worked my tail off to pay it back. In those days, we only had in-person. And when I was done, nobody was interested in me. And I had to go find out from other people what they needed. So our goal is not to basically run up the cost of training and do it in person and say, oh, you've been here for 16 weeks. Goodbye, you're done. And hope and pray someone gets hired. We retrain every other boot camp. And the people stay in our program, and our program is until somebody is hired. And we don't have that if we start a hard date and a cutoff, and that's why we don't do it. Everybody that buys our training, if they do the work, they should be getting a great job in the end because we let them stay on our program until they're hired. And that's why we are known, and we have students in every major employer you can think
Back to Igor. Do you think that the cloud architect will be valuable for long or fast, considering the market saturation?
Well, Igor, I see engineering positions going down, 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 and down, and architecture positions going up, up, and up. Engineering can be done by artificial intelligence, some of it right now. And engineering can be outsourced to the cheapest part of the world, and it is already. Now, why do we have architects? Here's the reason. Last week I saw a software engineer. We should just let the customers test our code. We don't need to code check it. What a waste of time. It slows our applications down. And then I saw another senior software engineer talking about, and he was a smart person, but he had the perspective of an engineer. And the smart person was talking about not designing for high ability because it costs more. And then, I saw another techie, and another techie recently wrote something else that was all about the tech. And you know what they all ignored? The business. Like, why are we doing this? What are we doing it? What's the point? And the reality is, there's generative AI in addition to the regular AI we have. There's all this cool networking stuff. There's this cool video stuff, this voice stuff, the supply chain stuff, all this stuff. The more tech comes down, the more architects we need. The architects are those people that have that training to translate between engineering techies, which know how to build it, and the business people, which need it. We're the only people that can convince people to buy this stuff. We're the only people that know how to design for transformation versus design for engineering. So there's going to be more and more and more and more architect jobs. There's no saturation because nobody is training them other than us. The reason we have to retrain everybody else's graduates is here's what they're teaching them. They're doing cloud projects, and guess what? Architects don't build, they design. They're learning Python, architects don't code. They're learning DevOps, architects don't code. They're learning SysOps, architects don't code. There's even a training program that says we can make you a solution architect, a DevOps engineer, and a SysOps person, which is kind of like saying you can become a doctor, an accountant, and a boxer all in the same training program. It's insanity. So there's no cloud architects out there. There's hundreds of thousands of open roles. And we probably train 2,000 people at a year. So we've got about 50 years just to fill the open roles that we're actually doing right now. Don't worry about it. And there'll be, of course, always be a new architect, the AI architect, and the network architects like me became enterprise architects or cloud architects. You got a big long road there, Igor.
Yeah, I think with technology, Mike, the more you try to learn, the more you realize you're not going to be able to learn it all. And getting that generalist foundation of becoming an architect and taking the time to think about what specialty you want to work in, go for it. But ultimately, just making sure that you have that foundation is key to success.
And that's the key. So Igor, the CCIE is the hardest of all certifications. The CCNA is relatively easy. The CCNP is moderate. It's still about 5 times more than an AWS Solutions Architect Professional. That's why I call it moderate. And the CCIE, which is tough. Here's what happens, Igor. When somebody passes the CCNA exam, woohoo, I know networking. And guess what? Then you do the CCNP, which is about 10 times harder than the CCNA, and it's like, I know a lot of this networking thing. And then you read the 75,000 pages and you do the CCIE exam, and you're like, wait, I don't know anything about networking. Look at all the stuff that I need to know. So as you know more, you realize all the stuff you need to know. So just focus on one thing. It'll be great.
From Emmanuel, I am in the program, and I will recommend anyone here who is not who is not to join the program. Very intensive, but worth it. Thanks, team. Happy to be in it.
So nice to hear you, Emmanuel. We're so
glad
honored
to have you.
working with you.
From Toy, are there one-on-one trainings?
Sure, we can do one-on-one training, but the question is why? Why do you want one-on-one training? You have to realize that any architect that's worth their salt, meaning the kind of people that can change your life, is a $500,000 a year person, minimum, of people that can really change you. Because you've got to be at that principal or distinguished level to train you. And that's what we have working in our company. So, it's going to be expensive to do one-on-one training. was it 6 weeks ago? We got someone a $404,000 job as a cloud architect, and they joined our $2,500 architect program. We've gotten a tremendous number of people $300,000 jobs plus in our $2,500 architect program. For people that really want good, what they should do is they should take our elite program, because not only do they have the award-winning, and we've won awards for our cloud architect career development program and our interview training program and our business acumen program. There's also 3 private one-on-one sessions, which are normally $1,200 a session. And we want you to use those sessions for either coaching into long-term how to improve your salary. We want you to either apply them for an interview or a presentation, that kind of thing where you can eke out a lot more. So yeah, we do one-on-one trainings, but the answer is 99% of our clients don't need it. And I'm not trying to run up anybody's bill. So I mean, at least when people buy our Elite Architect program, effectively they're getting a 50% discount. Because if they bought the initial trainings by themselves, it would be $10,000. And when they get the 3 private one-on-one sessions, that's another $4,000. So we're selling it for $7,500, and the retail price of it would be basically $14,000. So that's the cheapest way to get any one-on-one training in our training program. I'm all about getting the students and the clients to their goals to earn the most money at the lowest cost possible, and that's why we do what we do. Basically charge our costs out there to change lives. So sure, we can do one-on-one trainings, but you need it. And I'd rather save it for when you're looking for that interview to get an extra $100,000. That's the time where we like to do one-on-one training where we can really help you.
And another thing, just putting myself out there, Toy, perhaps maybe you might be hesitant to join it because you may feel overwhelmed. Now, look at it from this perspective. Not only do we have excellent training for our development programs, but we were remiss in not saying that we have a tremendous global Slack community of students just like you who are coming together to help one another and uplift each other to become cloud architects. Now, you always wonder, like, okay, if we have all these people, then are there going to be enough jobs for all these people out here? The answer is a resounding yes. There are more cloud architect positions than there are people to fill them. And our team, our community is dedicated to helping each other achieve our goals. They hold each other accountable. If Toy is missing, we're going to go looking for you to see, well, where are they? Are they following up on their skills? If not, are you going to be coming back? Because everyone in our community wants everyone to be successful. So I hope that is kind of comforting for you if you're considering our programs. From Reese, greetings to you both from the UK. What does a solution cloud architect need to learn about artificial intelligence to strive in the future?
So Reese, you got to realize what we are. A solution architect is a meaningless term because NVIDIA has AI solutions architects, and that's all they do. Cisco has solution architects that only sell Cisco stuff. So let's separate the role of solution architect because we don't even know what that is. It could be an AWS solution architect, and the only company that hires AWS solution architect is AWS. And they design, present, and sell AWS solutions. They don't build this stuff. So let's go to the cloud architect. Are there any cloud architectures that don't include artificial intelligence in today's world? No. Which means you will necessarily be designing cloud architecture in every system you build. Because any business that's not leveraging AI will be out of business. It's just a matter of when. Now, what the bigger thing is for you to remember as an architect, no one man or woman designs anything. You know, I'm going to say this to Alonzo. Look at the expression on his face. Alonzo, I have 25 years experience and I designed this architecture for you. Look at him. He's like, yeah, seriously? No, let's look at Alonzo's face differently, Reese. Hi, Alonzo, it's Mike Gibbs. I'm really honored to have the chance to review your business needs. I've gone back to my team. Because of the business situation and the criticality, I want to let you know that I consulted with 3 network architects, 2 cloud security architects, 3 data scientists, a data engineer, several artificial intelligence architects. I also consulted some experts in unified communications, some supply chains, and I had discussions with Cisco, Palo Alto, and Fortinet about your security needs. I also had some discussions with F5 about some of your reverse proxy needs. And after this, we have 3 possible solutions. Alonzo, would you like to hear more?
Absolutely, Mike. Thank you for sharing.
So the key is, Reese, the architect needs to be that leader, because I promise you, you will never learn enough as a cloud architect about artificial intelligence to deliver your clients what they really need. And as a cloud architect, you're never going to get good enough at networking to truly deliver the networking that the CCIE with 25 years of network architect experience like me could do. And by comparison, you're never going to get as good at anything as if you built a large team. So there's an expression in Africa that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Go together. So what problems does AI solve? Does it help people make better forecasts? Can it analyze their data? Can it provide their team better predictive analysis? Can it do chat support? Can it write code so the organization doesn't need programmers or can rely on less programmers? That's your job. How do I use this tech to go solve whatever business problem we have? And then understand enough of it so you know how it works, and then go find the right people and ask them the right questions and collaborate with them. And then when they're on something and you're the expert, you give them guidance. Architecture is a team sport. If I tried to tell any customer that I designed the system, they'd laugh at me, knowing full well that I was a principal architect for 25 years. They'd still laugh at me if I tried to say I designed this for you. And, you know, Reese, people come to me every day, Mike, I have new technology solutions where I design it myself. And I'm like, get out of here. Why? I said, if you design it yourself and you're not 3,000 years old because you're a vampire and you haven't worked on all these things for 3,000 years, I know it's going to be a disaster. Please leave. But yeah, I'm like, get out. Just period. No architecture is ever going to be done by one person. So keep that in the back. That's what you need. But there will be AI architects, I promise you.
Oh, yeah.
Specialize in that.
From Des, as a solution architect, is there a sales target? What happens if this gets missed? And what would happen if a business rejected a proposed architecture design?
So as a cloud architect or a solutions architect, there is always a sales target. And if you sell more, you'll earn more. If you sell less, you'll earn less. Like here's an example of a principal architect at Microsoft. If you look, the average salary is $379, but the pay range is $300 to $495. It's based upon your business acumen, which determines how much stuff you can actually sell. I'll give you another one. Solutions architect for principal architect, and I was one of these in 2 years. You can see the average pay is $372, but you can see the pay range is $291 to $491. Now, I'll give you one more, and then I'll show you. Here's a principal architect at Google. These are directly from Glassdoor. Average pay is $508,000, but you can see the pay range that is between $394 to $677 for this position. Now, believe me, there's architects that earn a lot more than this. But you know, these are typical principal architect salaries. Like I said, I was 1 in 2 years. And if you focus, you can get there relatively quickly. So you can see there's a $200,000 to $300,000 difference in sales. So let's say you're a solution architect and you decided, because you love tech, that you focused your skills on DevOps engineering and sysadmin work, and you became a great coder instead of focusing on your sales skills. You don't sell, you're fired. That's it. Now you sell a lot, you can earn another $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 that year. Now the good news, Des, is we're not exactly like commissioned sales reps. We might get a base of $150,000 to $250,000 and a bonus from 25 to 55% of our salary based upon sales, measurable business objectives, etc. So that's kind of keep that in the back of your mind. But if you don't sell, you're not going to be working very long. So focus on those sales skills. Focus on that business acumen. Focus on the executive presence. Focus on your emotional intelligence. Because what ultimately happens at the end of the day, I've got an architecture team. I got the techie, which sells $2 million a year. And I got the one that's a little less techie, but they sold like me $1 billion a year. Now, who do you think the company's paying more? Who's getting promoted and who's getting fired? At $2 million a year, the person's gone. At $200 million a year, the person's earning well. But we don't get fired if we miss an architecture. It's if we consistently miss, consistently and consistently. Because no business is ever won or lost by one deal for the most part in a real company.
And another thing, Des, is that also let's assume that you do have a good architectural design, but they opt not to take it. Okay, it is your duty as well to provide what we call an opportunity cost. And that means this is basically, it's a long explanative of what's going to happen if you don't. You're going to lose money, profitability, efficiency, and so forth if you do not subscribe to our options. And it's also your duty to make sure that if they reject your proposal, that it is documented. We always say cash is king, but documentation is queen. So at the end of the day, if something goes wrong with that particular architecture, it is documented that they rejected your prescription and solution, and that whatever happens is on them.
Yeah. And Des, the reason I'm saying this, I saw someone that was a solution architect that took an engineering position, and they were posting about sales engineers. And what's the job of the sales engineer? To sell. And the person was trying to make fun of the less techie ones, and they said, there are sales engineers that know how to buy lunches and dinners and drinks, and there are sales engineers that are expert to text. Which are you? And here's the reality. The one who sells the most is the one that gets promoted. The one who sells the least because they're focused on the technology is the one that gets fired. You have to manage and blend the technology with the business in these jobs. But all in all, the better you are with the business, the better your earnings are.
From P. Rand, I am also in the program, and the community is outstanding. You are never alone in your learning. I am so happy to have found Go Cloud Careers. Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Philip. I'm so grateful for your nice comments and so happy to be working with you.
Asif, I have 12 years of computer networking experience. Is it possible to get a job as a cloud engineer or Kubernetes administrator with no experience?
Well, of course you can. You can get a cloud architect, cloud administrator. Now, a Kubernetes administrator is a very low-paying job that'll pay you half of a good network engineer. And since you've been a network engineer forever, it's kind of like going from being a lion to being a little small kitten. I don't know why you'd ever want to do that, but the answer is, of course you could. I know plenty of people off the street, never worked in tech, that get their first job in either one of these roles. But cloud engineering and network engineering are very similar. Now, at the experts of network engineering, they're not coding. They're focusing on just BGP or PIM or just OSPF, and they're building, really complicated performance tuning things. But the average network engineer in today's world has strong familiarity with Linux, and they've got strong familiarity with Python. And they also understand virtual machines and to some degree containers, because it's not that much different than we've done with networking. And some network engineers know load balancers and storage area networks, and that's pretty much what you need to know for cloud engineering. So that's not no experience, that's a lot of experience. Now I had Joe Millen. He was a CCIE like me. He worked at Cisco just like me. And he came to us, and I got him a senior solution architect job in less than a month with AWS because he was a network engineer, and we skipped that whole engineering thing, which I highly recommend. But the point is because AI is going to kill engineering roles while it creates more and more architect roles. So there's that. But of course you could do it, but I would aim a lot higher than a Kubernetes admin. I wouldn't recommend that at all.
How does AI impact and or help in the work of a solution architect?
Creates more opportunities for us. Yeah. So AI doesn't do solution architect work. That's the key. The solution architect or the cloud architect doesn't touch the technology. We don't write code, so it's not going to help us. We don't configure technology. It's not going to help us. Now, generative AI could help us respond to RFIs, RFPs, and RFQs, which is something we do. Generative AI could help us write our documentation to a slight degree, but unless the documentation we're writing is for a request for information, or a request for a proposal, or a request for quote, AI-generated content has no soul. You read it. I can see who's on LinkedIn running Gen AI content. And it's like, I'm not reading this. I'm not reading this. I'm not reading this. And the architect's got to write things to be compelling. They got to go influence their client to generate another $200 million of budget next year. and for the next 5 years. And that's got to be persuasive writing. So generative AI and AI in general is another tool that a cloud architect can use to improve the customer's business performance. So many, many, many more jobs because of AI for architects. AI is the most destructive factor known to man for admin or engineering careers because it can do it all now. And we've only begun to see the beginning of the intent of Microsoft's $10 billion investment. Look at Oracle's investment. Look at Google's investment. AWS made a nothing $4 billion investment, and I call it a nothing because you got to figure Microsoft has been doing it for a while, far more than AWS, and they invested $10 billion months ago before the prices of all this stuff actually went up. So, they're there, but, there's a tremendous amount of AI, and AI is a game changer for business. It's the ultimate productivity enhancer, and kind of keep that in the back of your head. But, so it just adds and adds and adds more jobs.
From Reese, it's a two-part question, Mike. You are both very articulate. Has this been natural to you both in your careers? And what advice would you give for someone aiming to improve this?
Well, Reese, it's not natural for me. I can tell you this, I'm a shy introvert. Now, I have had over $350,000 of education in this. So first, Reese, I learned how to practice internal medicine. I was a nurse practitioner. Learned a lot about how to talk to people on that job because the architect asks the client for information, the medical professional does. I also did 2 master's degrees, well, actually 3 if you count the second MBA, but we're only going to count 2 of them because I only finished one of the MBAs, not the other. I was 2/3 through the other MBA program, and I got a big job on Wall Street, and I had no choice but to accept it. It was an offer I couldn't refuse, like they'd say in a movie. So, and I did another MBA when I went into. Now, Reese, when I was done my MBA program and I got my first lead architect job, now I was a principal architect before that, but when I got a lead architect job, we're talking the director level or above. And even though I had an MBA and I had already worked for Cisco, they sent me to speech presentation classes, 3 different ones, executive presence classes, emotional intelligence classes, sales classes, CXO relevancy classes, and they got me an executive coach. And I still have an executive coach. So Reese, you got to be trained in these skills. Mm-hmm. And these are very expensive skills to learn. It's one of the reasons I created the Cloud Architect Career Development Program is it took me $100,000 of skills after my MBA and after being an architect for years to learn these skills. And I knew that was way out of budget for the majority of people. So I tried to bring all those skills, teach all those skills at the lowest cost possible. And that's why our people are there. So, it didn't come natural to me. It's training. How about you, Alonso?
Well, I've been surrounded by a lot of family members who have done a lot of paper speeches and things like that. I also like to read. And another dynamic, I love speaking with people. So learning how to hone my communication skills has been something that I've really tried to focus on. I didn't have the resources Mike went through. He had a lot of particular resources that were expensive, but not along my trajectory, but I was still able to continually hone and move forward with it. And especially in the program, it helped me to really focus what I want to say. Now, if anyone has gone through a bachelor's or a master's, again, I reiterate that we have to be flowery with our words. We have to use 2 and 3, maybe 4 syllable words to articulate something within a white paper or whatever. But it's quite the opposite in the cloud architecture space. We have to be very succinct to what we want to say and be able to put it in an executive summary format. So it's the hardest punching, but very simplistic explanation that you want your audience to understand about the architecture. And that's one of the things that I continually learn to hone here as well.
Chris or Tyrone, we can go to the next one.
From Des, is a cloud architect role a remote role, a hybrid role, or an on-site job role?
It's kind of none of the above. I mean, most cloud architects work from home. but they will travel to their client's site constantly because customers don't buy from you when they can't see you. So Des, I've been working remote as an architect since 2001. Now, there was a stint when I was at Cisco in 2003 where I did work commuting to the office 2 days per week for a period of 6 months. And then I went back to working from home. At one point, I was working from my home in Greece, which I really enjoyed. I was in Nepomuk Beach in our home, and nobody was the wiser for at least 6 months, and I booked my travel to my client site out of there. It was a little harder getting to San Jose for executive briefings out of my home in Greece than it actually was. And in many times, it was much easier for me to go to London and do an executive briefing that was there from there. And I did that very frequently. So there is that, but I'd say it's a hybrid because some days you will go to the office to meet people. Some days you will go to work from home, but it's going to be most people work from home as cloud architects.
Again from Des, please describe how day one would be of the Cloud Architect Development Program.
Well, our training is 3 modules. Module 1 is live classes. And those classes are at 10 a.m. Eastern on Tuesday, which just happens to be 3 p.m. UK time. They are on Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern, which happens to be 9 p.m. most of the year in the UK. And they are Friday at 1 p.m., which happens to be perfect pub time at 6 p.m. in the UK. So those are the times of our classes. But when someone signs up, they're going to be doing the following. They're going to be doing their own self-paced training. There'll be projects to do, there'll be interview training, and they do that, and there'll be architecture training and architecture work and business work and leadership and sales. All that stuff gets done on the person's own time. They do an assignment, they turn it in, and our team gives you expert feedback to get you great. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind. Now, in the live classes, 2 of those 3 classes we're going to be doing architecture work, and 1 of those 3 classes we're going to be focused on those business things. Now, of course, there'll be projects, and even though cloud architects don't touch the technology, there's these silly labs that like skill builder labs that are out there. They don't teach anybody anything worthwhile. We actually have people do what I call real labs. We have our clients design and build their own cloud, so that way they could create the entire AWS cloud, as opposed to someone doing a little lab that they've found on there that are there. Now, we still do the equivalent of those skill builder type labs for AWS and Azure in our program, but that has nothing to do with architecture. That's the only thing to do with engineering. And why do we do those things? So when someone says, have you ever done this? You can say the answer is yes. You don't learn architecture by building. You just don't. But we include it there, and that way it gives people a sense of confidence. And when you're on a hiring manager and they say, have you ever done this? Yeah, sure, I've worked with VMware in the data center. Yes, I've absolutely designed private clouds. Sure, I've created hybrid clouds. Sure, I've created multi-clouds. Sure, I've done this. And that way, everybody that's part of Go Cloud Careers gets a job title as part of their internship, and they get to do actual cloud architect work. And that way they've got a place to put their skills, which helps people get there and do well. So day 1 could be, it depends on when you sign up. If day 1's a Saturday, the first day you're going to be doing stuff on your own. If you happen to sign up on a Tuesday morning, you're going to be doing some things on your own. You're going to be in the class. We're going to work with you in class. And ideally, after class, you're doing some more stuff on your own. But, it's really, really flexible. 50 to 80% of our people work full-time and can't attend all classes, and we record them so they can watch them afterwards. The point is, you're going to be doing great. Now, if you ask me what the day in the life as an architect job, that would be a different question. I can tell you that right now. It's going to be meetings, taking clients to lunch, playing golf with clients, drinking with clients, documenting things, going to meetings and going to more meetings and going to more meetings. That's the architect day. And they're all going to be great, and it's the most fun job in the world. But, it's going to be based upon what you need to do, and how fast you need to get through will determine what your day will look like and how fast you learn. I have some people that can dedicate 2 hours a day. I have some people that can dedicate 12 hours a day. Was Richard Afukar, who was one of our first students, really neat guy from Nigeria, was hired by AWS within 3 weeks. I think he literally stayed up 16 hours a day and worked on it 7 days a week. Because he called me 2.5 weeks into it. We were small at the time. I got to know everybody personally. And he's like, I got this interview. What else do I need to know? And told him, and poof, he studied for it. And poof, he was hired. He was awesome.
Yeah.
But I have other people that take a year that are in the program that are like, you know, life is in the way. I can only study this, and we don't care. You stay on the program until you're hired done, and you should build a great job if you do our course, and you will learn a lot, and you will have fun, and you will meet friends for life, all over the world. I can tell you that.
From Tevin, most jobs say the cloud architect needs to have coding experience. What does the role or definition of cloud architecture, why is the role and definition of a cloud architecture so vague in most places?
Tell them, we'll put the article from CIO Magazine that's incredibly clear on what is the skills of an architect. It depends on who the person is that's doing the hiring. I don't hire anybody with a coding background by choice. I like to hire people with networking and a data center background. And here's the reason why. Coding has nothing to do with anything we do, zero. We're going to work with a load balancer. That's a network technology. We're going to work with a virtual machine. That's a data center technology. We're going to work with a firewall. That's a network security device. We're going to work with a storage area network, block storage, object storage, file storage. That's a data center thing. There's no coding in there. But, you know, here's the thing. If you used to be a programmer and now you're an architect, you may be biased to like people with a programming background. If you're a network architect like me, you might be biased to have people with a networking background, and I am. Because if you have no network, you've got nothing. But at the end of the day, Talvin, I don't really care what anybody's background is. I care about what they can actually do. I can't code. I never know how to code. Why would I code? I'm an architect. The company wouldn't even let me touch the technology. In fact, Talvin, back in 1999, when I first became an architect, I remember it was like it was yesterday. And I was working with a client, and they had a major BGP outage and was taking down their entire system. I was probably one of the 50 best BGP people in the entire world. And I was at my customer site, and I went, QC BGP problem. And I say, can I get on the console of this router? And I'm doing my show IP BGPs. I'm looking at the rib. I'm looking at the fib. I go on this router, and I make a change for them because the customer asked me to, and poof, everything's right. A couple hours later, Mike, I need you to come meet me in the office. I get a call from my manager. And my manager says, you touched the client's systems. You configured a system. I said, yes. He said, architects don't configure. You do that again, you're fired. And I said, why? And he said, the second you were on the technology, you couldn't see what's going on around you. You are not permitted to touch your customer's technology. If the customer has technology, let them call the technical assistance center. So I don't know why they need it. It's completely unrelated skill as far as I'm concerned, and I've been an architect forever, and I've got architects hired at every major company you can think of. And guess what? 99% of them couldn't code. Yet they were hired by AWS, Azure, Google, IBM, Cisco, Accenture, Deloitte, KPMG, Capgemini, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and every major elite hire of employees out there.
And also another thing, they're probably greedy because they want some super person who can do both sides of it, and they're not going to pay you for the individual salaries that both command. So you need to run away from those particular scenarios. But, you know, it all depends, because if you have a recruiter approach you, tell them about what this entails, and maybe you might be able to weed through all the nonsense of that particular posting to find out what's really going on behind the curtain. But I would never take on a role or accept a role where they want you to architect and engineer in that space.
Never. You're destined to fail because you can't focus on the big picture and focus on what's in front of you.
Exactly.
That's why the generals generally aren't on the battlefield with the soldiers. They're in a command component. That's why the architects aren't permitted to touch technology. And, you know, we've had plenty of people at AWS and others. Are you allowed to touch your customer's network? No.
No. And I know this is fictitious, but it still makes a lot of sense. In any movie, if there's a battle, all of the generals are in a high ground position. Why? Because they need the 10,000-foot view to find out what's going on and how to move subsequent units to specific areas, when and where, so that they can win the overall battle. So that kind of gives you some context there. LinkedIn user, as others have indicated, the program is transformative and you will be prepared to take your career to the next level. I am excited to pivot to an architectural role. Well, we're excited for you as well. From Des again, I am based in London, UK. What are the timings of the Cloud Architect Development Program?
So the timings are 10 a.m. Eastern, which turns out to be 3 p.m. UK time. They are on Tuesday. They are Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern, which is 9 to 11 p.m. UK time where that course is. And they are Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern, which is 6 p.m. UK time.
So hopefully that still works within your parameters, Des. An AWS Skills Build is the AWS Skills Builder enough to gain knowledge of cloud architecting?
The AWS Skill Builder has zero to do with architecting.
Nope.
So, Des, I want you to think about it this way. Here's what the Skill Builder is. I'm going to hand you a hammer, a screwdriver, and some nails and some cement. I'm going to teach you how to use it. Now I'm going to go ask you to design me the London Eye. Now you know how to use a hammer, a nail, and a screwdriver, but I asked you to design the London Eye, that beautiful Ferris wheel on the Riverwalk. You're not going to be prepared to do it because the Skill Builder is how I do intro-level cloud admin skills, and it has nothing to do with design skills. So it will train you with all the skills completely unrelated to your careers. So, no, it won't teach you anything. It might help you become a cloud admin if that's your goal.
Mm-hmm.
It won't be enough to become a cloud engineer if that was your goal. And it has absolutely zero to do with anything we do as cloud architects.
Yeah.
And that's why we retrain everybody's cloud architect and solution architect students, because they do a whole bunch of AWS skill builders. They learn to code, they learn Terraform, they learn maintenance, and then someone says, how do you design this? And they go, blah, 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 blah. And then you ask someone to sell you something, and they're like, blah, 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 blah. And they don't have the skills. So, no, it won't give you anything as it pertains to learning architecture. It will waste your time, though. And if you spend 3 months doing that, and the average architect in the U.S. earns $234,000 a year, you lost over $50,000. In the UK, it is lower pay. We're seeing about £100,000 sterling per year in what we're getting clients. But even still, that's still a lot of money to lose. So it's £8,000 per month, and we hate to see you spend 3 months learning things that won't help you and lose £24,000, which coincidentally is about $40,000 US anyway.
And you know what? I think it's really relevant. I can't pronounce today. Keep in mind, Des, that as a cloud architect, we are agnostic towards any one specific cloud service provider or anything else. We could care less where it comes from, the solution, as long as it's beneficial to the client. So with that being said, please don't ever get hung up on names, the brand names of cloud, AWS, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud Platform, or any others out there. Focus on what's beneficial to the customer. So we talk about, for instance, you mentioned AWS Skills Builder, and a lot of people would talk about using AWS WAF and so forth. However, in the real world, where 98% of organizations use multi-cloud, applying just that appliance towards protecting an entire enterprise is nowhere near sufficient. So we're looking to people, to organizations whose focus is nothing more than security, like Palo Alto, Cisco, Fortinet, Checkpoint, to fortify these areas with load balancing sandwiches, if you will, and incremental changes and variations of these appliances to further confound any type of break-ins by ransomware or other bad actors. So just as a focus, never focus on any cloud service provider, but just look at which ones have the right solutions for the right problems.
And I'm going to add a little of this, but before I do, if you have any questions, ask them now, because otherwise we're going to end very shortly. But so here's the thing. I want you to really learn architecture, and I want you to learn the cloud. Because if you do any of these AWS skill builders, not only will they not teach you anything related to architecture, but they're going to teach you how to use all the stuff that you can't actually use. There's no architecture that I can think of where I could use DynamoDB for any of my clients, Amazon Aurora, Elastic Compute Service, AWS WAF, or any of the AWS proprietary anything. Why? Because 98% of organizations are multi-cloud, which means I get rid of the AWS DynamoDBs. And instead, I swap it out with MongoDB or Apache Cassandra based upon what is my read or read-write mode, for example. I swap out AWS Route 53 for my own DNS solution that's in 3 clouds. I swap out Amazon Aurora for Oracle database, which can run in all clouds, for example. I swap out WAF for a Palo Alto firewall or a Cisco firewall or Fortinet Next Generation firewall with greater security abilities. And that's the reality of my world. So, can you keep those in the back of your mind? That's reality.
From Kwasi, what are the best design principles for creating a solution that is reliable, performant, and scalable?
Kwasi, for what? That's the big question. You're thinking technology. I'm thinking business. What's the business needs? What's reliable? Reliable for Amazon Prime might be 99.9% of reliable, and that's good. Because who cares if somebody can't watch their TV for 5 minutes? System availability for a nuclear power plant better be 99.999% or greater, or we're going to have a nuclear meltdown and thousands of people are going to die. A hospital or an emergency service system, when it goes down, people die. That needs one level of availability. But my cat Cindy's website, guess what? It can go down a little bit, and so what? Who cares? So what is that? Now, again, I'm talking business, you're talking tech. What are the challenges I have? What are my terrestrial network options versus wireless options? Because that's going to change everything. What kind of throughput and performance do I need? What kind of scalability do I need? Do I need to go from 200,000 employees to 2 million employees potentially in the future? Or I want to go to 50 employees to 1,000 employees? Very different scalability things here. And they're not even in the same world after that. So Kwasi, I think the big question is what business problem am I trying to solve? And then you figure out. Performance is generally based on network speed and server speed and storage speed. For example, like block storage is really slow. But if I was only using AWS and I needed high-speed storage, I'd reach out to NetApp over in Israel. And NetApp has a solution which can work with Amazon FSx for Lustre and make it look like block storage. But what if I don't need that kind of performance? And what if I don't need a $100,000 a month virtual hard drive for a server? Now, what if I need better than that, Kwasi, and I got to go to the data center and I need 19 million ops? Then it becomes a hybrid cloud solution, which is the most performant. So what problem are you trying to solve? Kwasi, I'd like to see that you get out of thinking about the technology and start focusing on the problem that you're actually trying to solve. That's the difference between architecture and engineering. When people come from engineering, it's all about how do we do the tech thing. I'm not saying you did or didn't. When people come from architecture, and it's the first thing is what business problem we're trying to solve. Now, reliability and availability, generally speaking, means don't use a single cloud, use more than one cloud. Performance generally has to do with the type of networking you set up. Scalability is everything. For example, I might have an organization where I can do my core switches and access switches, and that's it, connecting to the cloud. It's nothing. I might need another network which needs much greater scalability, where I need to create a very big core of switches, a distribution layer of switches and routers, and an access layer of switches and routers and have to do all layer 3 versus layer 2 links between them based upon the business needs. So all of that is going to be there. And my definition of reliable is going to be different than somebody else's. My definition of performance is 800 gigabit per second network throughput. Somebody else's is a 10 gig link and they think it's fast. What are you building? What's the need? So Kwasi, I hope I answered some of those questions for you to really think about it first.
And you know what, Kwasi? No, go ahead, Mike.
If you give us specific needs, then we can talk about it, but it's all different based upon the business.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, like case in point, Mike had mentioned if you need low computing speed versus you have a static website. If it goes down, you know it's going to be the same stuff that you saw a few hours ago. But with new technology, like say, for instance, generative AI, Internet of Things, and so forth, it requires these huge amounts of data, just ridiculous peta, and they're even talking about zettabytes in the future. That requires a reliant, performant, and scalable solution. And now with such compute power, because Mike, when we talk about the compute, you know that there's going to be a lot of heat involved with a lot of those database servers and so forth. They're eyeing nuclear energy at this point to try to offset all the energy that's required. So when you think about reliant, performant, and scalable, what is that going to look like for your solution? What kind of questions are you going to ask about how to make this solution work and so forth? So you can see by the very title, well, subject matter of nuclear energy, there's going to be a lot to discuss about how this is going to go from the logical or the theoretical to the real world performance rather. From Ed, what are the skills for traditional network engineer to become a good cloud guy?
Okay, let's go to the second half of this question that he also asked Tyrone, and maybe it's going to give us some more information, like which one he wants. Trying to figure out, okay, how to use networking knowledge to start a career in the cloud. You don't have any working cloud experience. And they say cloud guys don't like the network too much. Any cloud person that doesn't like the network doesn't understand cloud. Here's all the cloud is. Somebody else's network at a data center. And if you don't know networking at almost CCIE level, you really don't know much about the cloud at all. So, I will tell you to go from a network engineer to a cloud architect will be much easier for you to go from, and then Igor, I'm going to get to your question next. We're going to end on that because I really don't want you using reference architectures, please. And I'll tell you why. So it'll be easier to go from a network engineer to a cloud architect than it will be to go from a network engineer to a cloud engineer. So I don't know what you mean by network engineer, and there's two kinds. The network engineering world where I come from, and I spent 6-10 years at Cisco as a network architect, and I was a principal network architect for about 8 to 10 years before I joined Cisco. So from the network people that I'm talking to they're either routing or switching people. Maybe they know BGP. For me, it was BGP and PIM sparse node. I built an entire career on it. But if we're talking about a traditional networking person that doesn't know how to code, but they understand routers, they understand switches, and they understand what to use and when to use a VLAN versus a private VLAN, and they have good, strong understanding of QoS and what to use when and rate limiting, and they really know networking. And that means they don't know Linux, and because we're talking a traditional network engineer, it means they don't know Python. The easiest thing for them to do is learn cloud computing. And what do they need to learn as an architect? What is a virtual machine and how do they work? What is a load balancer and how does it work? When do I use a reverse proxy versus an application load balancer versus a load balancer? How does this network storage working? Block storage, object storage, file storage, just storage area networking. Some of that's IP-based, block storage often is. Some of it's fiber channel-based, but again, it's more networking stuff. How do these firewalls work? When do I integrate these firewalls? When do I use a network-based IDS/IPS system? When should I use unified communications? All that networking stuff is the same cloud stuff. It hasn't changed. It's just now we've got data center stuff. So if you wanted to be a cloud architect, here's the thing. You're going to have to learn to sell. You're going to have to learn to lead. You're going to learn executive presence, CXO relevancy, work on some emotional intelligence, work on sales, and then poof, you're a network architect. So my CCIE number is 7417. You can imagine how long I've been in networking. I had someone like Joe Millen, I'm referring to him. Joe Millen was with me 3 years. He was a rock star network 3 months, and then I got him hired as a senior solution architect at AWS. Now, I wouldn't have been able to get him a cloud engineering job. It might have taken me 6 months for that. But solution architect was pretty easy. Kind of keep that in the back of your mind. So you can get there. It's great. It's all very similar.
From Igor, do you recommend some place where we can find good reference architecture?
Okay, Igor, I don't recommend reference architectures. Wait, what? Why? A reference architecture is here's the tech. Here's how to design it. And you know what they have nothing to do with? What business problem they're trying to solve. So a reference architecture is exactly how not to do something. Start with the business problem. Poof. How does the business work? How do you want the business work? And then work backwards and innovate. When you see these well-architected frameworks, it's someone's goal to basically say, here's how you use my stuff, and they're trying to force you to use it. And they're trying to put a round peg in a square hole. Reference architectures are terrible. Now, if you've got a great reference architecture, and it's designed for a healthcare system, it may or may not work in other healthcare systems. But even still, generally speaking, don't start there. Don't recommend it all.
From Folashaki, is coding even remotely pertinent to the career of an architect? For example, they might need it to deliver on a proof of concept.
Now, Fola, if I had a choice to learn how to be a chef or learn how to code, I would tell you being a chef is more relevant to being an architect. And here's the reason why. You might invite a client to your house and cook them a meal. Versus you will never code. If I have a proof of concept, I'm going to have an engineer deliver it for me. They're going to do the demo. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to talk about it, what it can do. And there's going to be a bunch of engineers in the back that are clicking boxes and demoing it. I don't do that as an architect. So if I had a choice whether to learn how to be a chef or learn how to code, I would choose to be a chef any day. If I had a choice to work out at the gym or learn to code, I'd work out at the gym every day, because if you're in shape, you're more likely to get hired. I would never learn to code unless I wanted to be a programmer. There's no point in learning to code. It's nothing that we have to do. And now I got to convince people I'm not a programmer and I want to become an architect. Because while I love programmers, they do amazing things. The people that hire the architects look at the programmers as the behind the scene people. So if you want to do something else, I took golf lessons to help my architecture career, and it did. I took sommelier lessons so I could learn how to select the right wine and the right scotch when I entertain client, and that helped my career. I went to business school. I studied leadership. I took presentations training, and there's a reason I will never learn to code. I'm not going to learn somebody else's job that has no bearing on my job, unless it's my hobby. And if it was my hobby, I'd probably learn photography, because I could probably do more by taking better pictures of myself than learning to code. Okay, well, I hope we were able to answer your cloud computing questions today, so you can build an elite technology career. I know in the last 25 years, going from point A to point B and getting people hired is one of my favorite things in the entire world. I love it when someone gets hired. I love that we can have these conversations so someone doesn't waste 2 years of their life learning how to code only to remove it from their resume because they don't want someone to know about it later. So that's why we're here. We're here to tell you what you need to do. Over 25 years, I've spoken to thousands of hiring managers, thousands of recruiters, thousands of executives, and I've asked them, what do you want? And the perfect employee. And that's what we do when I base our training on what the clients tell us they want. I don't worry about job descriptions. I've never seen one in my entire life that was real. I've also never been on an interview where I didn't get the job, and I've never had more than 10% of the skills in a job description. But I can promise you this, on every interview I went on, I had the correct skills. So Join on us on the free Cloud Architecture Design Challenge. It's coming up real soon, in the next few weeks. You'll get to live the life of a cloud architect for the day. They'll give you a scenario, and you'll design it. I'll probably help you guys along the line because most of these times the only people that actually know what to do are my students. I'll coach you along the way. We'll have fun. You'll get the requirements. You'll do the design, and then you'll present it and sell it. Kind of keep that in the back of your mind. Just like an architect. Philip, remove the Python from your resume. It does not help you. So, join us for this. Download the completely free How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job document that's going to be there. And it's going to tell you everything that you need to know. Everything that you need to know. And while we're at it, I'm going to do a special How to Get Your First Job webinar from my hotel room live at the conference. It's going to be fun on Thursday. So join us for the How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar, and you'll be in great shape. Great job, Philip. Take care, everyone, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. See you next time.